Good evening. Welcome to Whiskey Wednesday. Joining me for a glass or 1-0 of whiskey is the ninja, Dr. Jason Pittman. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about emotional leadership and what that means. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is EchelonOrchid.
Guess who's back?
The ninja. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing excellent. How are you, my friend?
I am very well. I'm not drinking whiskey tonight. This is Armagnac.
Ooh, I'm drinking mineral water. It was very windy and dry today, so my allergies kicked up.
Fermented mineral water?
No, just straight mineral water, man. This is Kirkland from Costco.
Yeah.
We usually keep. Well, I've always liked drinking like Perrier and different mineral waters and carbonated waters. I just like the fizz to it because I don't like soda. But we really keep it around for mixed drinks. Like, hey, let me grab a little bit of that.
Yeah, I love seltzer waters. I pretty much drink because, again, while I like soda, it's so fucking bad for you. So I just don't want to. I don't want to drink it. I rather, if I'm going to have something that's going to be, poison to my system, I would at least rather it be, some all natural, not with high fructose corn syrup and a bunch of other chemicals I can't pronounce.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that you can't pronounce. All right, so check this out. I might be turning into a little bit of a hippie. I don't know, but it feels like it. Started making my own soap.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I was like, thinking about like all these different things, so like, we've talked about how, we're interested in doing TRT and things like that. And I've got a service where I want to feel like I'm 25 again. Why not? Right. So I'm going, all right, what are all these things that could potentially be also contributing factors? Because one, there's always, if it's too much alcohol, but come on, I'm not giving up. I don't really have too many vices, and I kind of enjoy, and I'm not out there getting drunk, so whatever. But then I started looking at the number of men that are getting breast cancer is on the rise, and they one of the theories, the hypothesis, is that it's the soaps and the body washes that we're using, all the chemicals that are in there. So I'm like, well, I wonder how hard it is to make soap, dude. It's so easy,
Right?
It's simple. Like I will spend $20 maybe for like an entire year worth of soap.
Mm-hmm.
So my soap consists of activated charcoal, pine tar, coconut oil, cedar wood, essential oil, and then there's this one. It's called it's some mix of things. It's got a little bit of bunch of stuff in it. It's called immune. It's an immune system essential oil. It's like in a pack that the missus got. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna put some of this, but it's 1 tablespoon, a combination of the essential oils, which is basically that and the cedar wood. That's my soap. So the pine tar is antimicrobial, but it's also really good for people that get like eczema and stuff like that. And I get eczema quite often, or it flares up quite often. So
that's so interesting, man, because it wasn't that long ago I was thinking about starting to roll my own incense. Kind of the same idea, not exactly the same, but I've always, since I was a little kid and I discovered incense, I've always liked burning incense while I work, especially like when I'm in my own office like this, right? I just like the atmosphere. I like the ritual of it, whatever, right? And if you buy it, it can actually get expensive. And I'm like, I wonder what it takes. Dude, it ain't hard. It's kind of the same thing. It's a stick, some kind of binding agent, which you can use like honey, right? And you mortar and pestle up some type of, let's call it flavor or scent you want from some natural source, and it's basically dust that you bind in this honey gum and roll onto a stick and let it dry. You burn it. Perfect.
Yeah.
I haven't done it yet, but it's on my list.
Yeah. I just figured, all right, I was kind of in my mind, I was like, all right, how difficult is this really? Right. Because my first thought was going to Fight Club.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of, man, with the lie. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so of course then I have to do this. All right, I got to talk about this slightly. That city in Florida where their water supply was almost compromised.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, come on. Like people all that go, we need to pay. Like there's so many people going, our critical infrastructure needs to be protected. Cybersecurity's got to be a priority. Dude, how about technology common sense? If it's that critical, it shouldn't even know how to get to the internet, right? I mean, where is the Bastion host or jump server, whatever you want to call it, with multi-factor authentication that is not through a text message, but like a true app, where then you have step-up authentication. Like it should not be easy when you need to remote in to be able to, even get to like that particular server that allows someone to go in and change the combination of what's going to be put into the water. Like that is like not just no common sense, that's complete negligence. It has nothing to do with cybersecurity because you could, that is literally someone being lazy.
Yeah. Somebody asked me about that, and we were talking about like that and SolarWinds this week in a cyber class I'm teaching, and I explained it like this. I'm like, have you ever thought about why you have to rob a bank to get the money? It's because they don't let just any asshole walk into the vault and take cash, right? Like, and if you want it, you're gonna have to break in to get it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, so why are you allowing things to be remotely accessible? What's wrong with making somebody do it by hand? If it's really that critical, it seems to me that like that's step one. Like, just don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways you can do this in a proper way. And it shouldn't, I mean, it should have been like the way it was at least described. And, I don't know all the details, right? I'm only going by what's been, what I've seen in the reporting. And I've kind of going, how are you in the security ops? And you go, well, yeah, I saw what this cat was doing. I saw the intrusion alerts, and I wanted to see how far he was going to get. What?
Yeah.
No. Like it's stop the threat. Like in my opinion, it's stop the threat. And there's going to be plenty of people that go, no, we need to know if this is nation state. No, you're talking about life. In my opinion, you're talking about potential lives being harmed. You stop the threat immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't watch a mouse go into the trap to see how far he's going to get.
No.
I mean, you don't leave the bank vault open. Although they did one time. I told you my dad was a janitor, right? This is a classic story. They left the vault open by accident one time, and my brother, my older brother, I have one brother, decided to go in there and play because it was a new place to go, and he locked himself inside of it. My dad had to call the bank president. That was not a good night, dude.
Yeah, so you know why you don't really let the mouse continue along in the maze? I mean, this has been known for many moons. Of nice, this nice gentleman named Sun Tzu said, "Never spar with a weaker opponent. You may make a mistake and lose to someone that was inferior to you. If you see the hacker in your systems, you don't play around. You don't know what packages were dropped along the way. Stop the threat. Make sure everything is good. And then turn it over to the proper authorities to do what they need to do." Like that's, you didn't get rid of your logs. You saw where the stuff's coming from. You'll be, any attribution you were get's going to be done is there anyway. Let them figure it out. Like,
yeah, right. Look, let me see how many times this guy can punch me in the nose before my nose breaks. What are you doing, man?
I don't get it. And that gets into the aspect of, as you would, wanted to describe between task-based leadership and emotive leadership, or emotional leadership. And there's a time, at least. So emotional leadership, like I think there's 6 or 7 emotions that they go through in the emotional leadership, right? One of them
like that, yeah.
One of them essentially being like authoritarian. Okay.
Mhm.
And when to use it. If this is your personality, how can you, how do you curve it? How do you go? Well, in a situation like that, that's where you need authoritative leadership, where it is, no, this is what we're doing because we have already spelled out in our standard operating procedures. If we see this, we do that, right? Authoritative leadership, it's been dictated. This is what's happening.
Yep. Agreed.
No time for another one, which is kind of, a democratic style where you want everyone's kind of opinion. You want to be club, which again, in certain things, yeah, to me, a democratic type of leadership is great when we're trying to develop the strategy.
You're right. Or even maybe in that moment, I could see, hey, look, Billy, Bob, and Steve, 2 seconds each. What's the best way to stop this right now? Because that's what we're doing. Okay, man. Because maybe you just want the best idea quickly. Okay, I get it. But that's not the spirit of that. Yeah, like you got to wonder what went through everybody's mind, like really behind the scenes in that, and where the leadership was,
or lack thereof.
Well, clearly,
right?
Fair point.
Because in my mind, as you were talking about that, I'm like, and you get a trophy, and you get a trophy, and you get a trophy, right?
Attaboy.
I mean, right. I mean, it's there are all those things, but getting into this aspect, what do you think about? I mean, so when I hear task-based leadership, I immediately go towards I'm micromanagement.
I think it has a propensity to descend to that, especially with people that solely or exclusively focus on tasks. Just like people that exclusively focus on emotional dimensions probably run the risk of not getting anything accomplished.
Well, as we've talked about, I mean, those are 2 different extremes.
Yeah, right.
And whenever you live on the boundaries of the extremes, and in any scenario, I can't think of a scenario where I could be on an extreme of something that I believe in or you believe in or whatever that could be good.
Yeah, right. It would have to be an extreme situation to for myself to imagine one of us gravitating into an extreme position. Well, like somebody's hacking my critical infrastructure, like that requires, because it's an extreme situation, an extreme response, and I just don't see a way around it, right? But
right.
barring that,
but that is something that is like I in my mind, we've already agreed to what the procedure and how we're going to act is going to occur. So there's no thinking involved. We have devolved to our most well-trained capabilities, right? If we've trained on this, that's what we devolve to, whatever we've practiced the most. So if in a situation like this, I mean, they should have they should have known at least at a tabletop.
right?
And tabletop exercises are great to see how we're going to react in any situation. And when we're talking about business, this gets into what many would refer to as business continuity planning, where you have mapped out all of your functions, specifically your critical functions, you can call it whatever, but in my mind, I call it critical, business, basically general purpose. Like I have 3 categories,
Right?
And that tells you when you have a crisis as to what needs to come up first and when. And so when this is what's happening, there's a hurricane. What services need to be up? You've already identified it. If everything goes down, this is what the priority is in order to serve, whoever our customers are. That's what's got to be up first. That's what we've deemed as critical. Bam, act, go, done. All right. Don't need to ask Billy, Bobby, Jenny, whoever, I don't have to ask them. They already know what they're supposed to do. We've already tested this out.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And I think the beauty of that is what you're doing is you're offloading, let's say the emotive stress ahead of time
Yeah,
by
sure.
pre-planning and pre-deciding, so that at some point in a lot of situations, not all but a lot, you can just go to that book, that binder, and be like, okay, we're on step 2 and step 3, and then it becomes more task oriented, but in a controlled way, which in that way, at least for me, that's how I would want to be.
Right, and this gets into the other emotives aspect, right? So as we were developing our BCP, it was kind of democratic. Like,
Mhm.
we're all kind of negotiating
Yeah,
what is the right thing to do for the organization that we're serving, and there's a priority. Like there is a priority, so many times when I hear people say, "Well, these are all priority one," no, it can't be. If everything's priority one, then nothing is priority one.
right, exactly, because that's the baseline normative stance. Well,
Right.
in so some ways too, like kind of what I was thinking about when I was thinking about this morning was when take something that's more moderate, not on the extremes in these two categories. To me, one of them, or even the combination of the emotional dimensions of leadership, manifests as in motivation, right? How do you motivate an individual or a team of individuals to perform something, as opposed to somebody that's task oriented, which is, and I think in that same level of operation. Look, here's the the decision that's been made. So we have tasks 1 through 10. Get these done, right? And you don't have to micromanage people necessarily to get that done. And just like when you motivate people, you don't have to appeal to your own authority. It's just an emotional way to direct labor or energy, right? Um, and I was thinking about that to expand on it, if I can, for a second.
Yeah.
That I think the best leaders have equal amounts of both and know when to apply them in the correct moments with the correct people, right? Because not everybody's motivated, to put it in that way, the same way. I think most of us tend to be one way or the other, and we learn how to develop the other side. And so that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, and they all kind of like in some ways, that task oriented leadership in some ways could be looked at as like pace setting, right? When
Yeah,
you look at
yeah, yeah.
the emotive side. So, just simply going, oh, it's not really verse. I mean, the way at least we were um talking about it over text of what we're going to talk about, it came across originally as like this versus this, but it's really not. I kind of almost think that task oriented is a leadership style that
Mhm.
kind of relates into me, at least in the higher ends, pace setting, right?
Sure.
We're focused on results, and we're focused on the day-to-day tasks and iterative improvement. And the only way that happens is through tasks. I mean, but there's many ways to get around it. I mean, I think there's also some dangerous pieces to the overall emotional pieces, because you've got the coercive leader, right? I don't think, even though there are people that have done this, but once you realize you have been manipulated in order to do things, then I don't think it ends well, right? I think in many ways, especially when being done for personal gain, you lose everything. I think it's really dangerous to use coercive tactics, um, which gets into like threats of punishment sometimes. It could be anything to where I think people believe that they were manipulated in order to get a result. I think that's dangerous, I've seen a lot of, and I hate calling them leaders, but there are leaders that incorporates good and bad, right? I think bad leaders tend to use more tactics of that nature to get things done because it's about them rather than about the group improving. And I'll take this as an example. So, um, while I like to like while and you've known me for quite a while, I certainly enjoy joking. I certainly enjoy having that bravado. But the only time I'm really uncomfortable is when in a group setting and someone else starts complimenting me on a lot of things that I've done well or implemented well. It does make me uncomfortable because that's not the reasons why I did any of this, and I did it because it was just what I felt like the right thing to do. And of course, I like um, to joke and to kind of build, in some ways myself up in a deprecating type of way. When someone else starts um, talking and that and especially when they mean it, it makes me uncomfortable. That's the only
Sure.
time I can really believe that I being uncomfortable is something along those lines. I would much rather someone try to roast me so I get my opportunity to roast back. I mean, I'm much better at that.
Yeah, and so with the versus thing, I think maybe it would have been better stated to say compare contrast.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think they're exclusive, and I don't think they're opposites, and I don't think one is inherently bad and one's inherently good. They're both bad and good depending on the circumstances, right? And exactly
Sure.
what's going on. And I was thinking more than lines like what started this is I was thinking about myself and how it's kind of interesting to me if I reflect on it that for myself, I'm much better managing or leading myself based on tasks, not emotions. I'm not emotionally motivated for myself, but I sure as shit don't like somebody around me enforcing some type of task based structure because I can create it for myself quite well. But when I'm dealing with other people, it's the exact opposite. I'm actually not very good at managing based on tasks with, like, let's say my student research groups. I tend to gravitate more towards, I think, more like your style overall with groups, which is across those emotional dimensions. I just find that interesting, right? That there's this dichotomy even in how I treat myself versus how I treat other people.
Well, of course there is, right? So I would believe just because you are a teacher by current profession, but even still throughout your life, it's you enjoy teaching people what you know, right? And that fits into the coaching aspect of those the emotive leadership styles, right? It's
Sure.
I want to help you get where you're going to get by understanding your goals and providing that carrot as to how you're going to get there, and being there along the way to get there, to get you to that point rather than pushing you there. I mean, that's you know
Or even sometimes it manifests. I think we talked about this a while ago. It manifests with the current, and it's been this way for some time. Student climate is they orient themselves towards step 1 through 10 with the expectation that the outcome is a certain grade level, and they associate a grade level with success or not success. Right? They don't look at it as a measurement of strength and weakness so that they can improve. They don't look at it that way. But and the system itself is perverted. I don't blame them. And so that was kind of what started me thinking about it. Like, well, sometimes I encounter somebody that I have friction with, and it's based in that because they're expecting 1 through 10, and that's what they need. And I'm almost never going to give it to you by intent. I expect you to go find that out for yourself. What I'm trying to do is motivate you as to why it's important for you to go find 1 through 10 on your own. And sometimes it creates friction, right?
well, and I think people tend to shy away from that friction, and I
Yeah.
think they because they don't understand that a diamond's only formed through pressure over time. That's friction, in this sense. You need that stress to help progress to whatever's next. You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
it
and in some cases, tell me if you agree with this. I was thinking about examples earlier today. And so, like, if I worked in an accounting department, I don't know that I would want an emotive type leader around me. I think I would want a task based, more task oriented leader because I think my perception, I've never been an accountant, but I would assume based on my understanding of that, that it's much more task oriented than it is motivational oriented. I don't know how good of an example that is.
uh well, no, I get it. I get it. And this is why I kind of look at, and maybe I'm looking at it at wrong. I mean, it's very possible. I just kind of I look at in some in many ways that task based being kind of like that pace setting style,
Okay.
right? That
Sure.
it's process oriented. In accounting, it's always a process.
Mhm.
You've got how many, you got X, this is when this is when the checks got to go out. The month ends on the last day of every month, the quarter end, the year end. Like we know what it is. And there is a very high standard to that, because if it's wrong, oof, what could possibly,
Well,
then
it
you've had
better
a
be
lot
that.
of bad things, right?
Yeah.
So I go that, there isn't a motive style to that, and that's just where I, again, maybe I'm not connecting all the right dots, but I kind of lean that when I hear task based to that pace setting emotion
Mhm.
style, because it's, hey, checks are going out on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, which means they've got to be to the CFO or comptroller by the Friday before to sign off on everything, that this is what's going on. You've got to have that pace, and it's consistent. There's
Mhm.
not a, I mean, all right, now, and I might be really over, well, no, I'll just go ahead and say it. I'm sure if someone gets, irritated, I've never heard of an accounting emergency.
Right. Right.
Okay. Because it's okay. The accounting emergency happens because someone committed fraud, which typically means it was self-inflicted, like the CFO's embezzling stuff, something along those lines. I mean, or someone, that would be, an accounting emergency. Someone has, messed with the books, but I mean, I feel like that's more self-inflicted. I'm sure there's an example. And if anyone out there that's listening as an accountant, which highly unlikely, because I mean, you know, accountants, right? It's almost 9 o'clock. They're typically in bed by now because they're so regimented. Um,
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm
they
with
gotta
you.
wake up in the morning and count the beans, right?
Hey, look, somebody has to. I'm glad somebody likes it. And that's the thing is I don't mean to imply to anybody that I think that's bad, negative, or joyless. I'm not even suggesting that it's emotionless. I'm talking about the leadership of that group itself. I don't think those people are motivated that way. I think they're motivated by that process. I mean, I certainly know people that are very they don't create structure for themselves, so they rely on that structure externally.
Well, and accounting would be a great thing for that external structure, right? Because you've
Right.
got you're doing gap accounting
Mhm.
or accrual based or whatever. I can't remember what the international standard is. You're doing one of those three, right? There's rules.
Well, and I think you use the best word is regimented. And so when
Yeah.
I think about task-based leadership, I think about a regimented process.
Right. And you need that.
Mhm.
If we're in manufacturing, I, X amount of widgets got to get produced a day, right? I mean, it's, step A, step B, C, D, all the way through
Mhm.
it. You got to make sure it's getting done, right? Um, it's it's necessary, and some people enjoy that. I don't happen to be one of them.
Right. And so right, that's kind of what is weird to myself is an oddity is that for myself, I've learned that I enjoy it for myself. If I create it for myself, I don't enjoy it if it's created for me and it's implied that I need to follow it. And that's not that strange, right? To me, what's strange is I'm not that way with anybody else. Yeah, I just find that interesting, man. And I thought, well, maybe this is interesting to talk about because look, man, if you go out into the world, you're gonna find a mix of this and everything in between. To the point, like you knew me early on when I was still attempting to lead myself in a very emotional way with deliberate lack of structure. And a number of years ago, I finally decided, well, what's the worst case scenario? I'll take a month and I'm gonna do the opposite of every single thing I think I'm gonna do. I'll just do the opposite. And so that's how I got into this more task oriented, regimented style of setting my weeks up and all that stuff. Man, it's so much less stress. It's so much less stress. But somebody else doing that for me with the expectation that I'm going to follow it creates infinite stress for me. And trying to do that for somebody else external, like one of these research teams or a startup or whatever, right, creates infinite stress for me. I just find that interesting.
You know, I don't know that I treat myself in this way any different than what I expect from others.
Right.
Um,
I don't think you do either, for the record.
yeah, I mean, I'm sitting there trying to think because I mean, I talk about, and we've talked about it, you know, when we were doing This Life in Tech, we've talked about it probably on this show in terms of like what we consider, you know, productivity, and maybe it's just because I have, and this is where there has to you have to have some aspect of regiment in order to set like a foundation, and then it's just a matter of how adaptable you are throughout whatever measurement of time you wish to go about
Mhm.
um, to get it. So like, okay, you know, I'm going like I don't try to put a huge time constraint, but I'll go, okay, I am going to read for 10 hours a week.
Mhm.
Now, there might be a day that I can do all 10 in one day, and maybe I get more done than in that week. But I know at least gotta, at least if I'm going to do it during the work week, it's 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day, I got to read in order to get my 10 hours in. So now I don't go so much as to what do I need to accomplish day by day, but in many ways, what do I need to accomplish within the week?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would imagine soon I will be able to ascend or evolve that to what do I need to accomplish in the month. But at one point in time, it was what do I need to accomplish by lunchtime? And then what do I need to accomplish? You know, at lunchtime, I kind of think, what do I need to accomplish before I can go home for the day? So then, what do I need to accomplish by the end of the day? What do I need to accomplish by midweek? And now I feel like I'm on a weekly basis. And maybe in some cases, I'm still thinking further down the road, but my system is at least I know what I want down the road. So in order for me to get there, I'm measuring it week over week.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because I think you and I are a lot alike in that way. Where, and I've said this before, and I've even experimented with it very recently. If I try to do anything by an individual day level of analysis, it creates a prison that I'll instantly rebel against, and it creates a lot of stress. If I do it by a month, it's way too abstract, and I'll never get to it because too much new stuff comes in across that much time for me. Whereas a week is perfect; it's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely perfect. And then I just say for the week, these are my tasks. And it doesn't matter when I do them in the week, they just need to be done before I get to the end of the week.
Right.
Now, there's certain things like today, I was sitting there and I was getting ready to leave. And I'm like, I know I need to do this before I leave because once I get home, because of everything else that I think I'm going to get into, I know I'll never get to it. And it's important that I get it done right now. But that's really the level I think about things at on a daily basis. And I've often wondered, how intrinsically that level of management or self leadership is probably a better way to describe it revolves around being an academic because things tend to be scheduled and managed and engaged with on a weekly basis, not so much a day basis, right? So, perfect example. Right now, I'm starting to cover data types in programming languages. That takes a week worth of labor to cover with students because of the amount of time it takes, right? And so things get planned out on that level. But it's interesting to me that you seem to manage things that way too, but we're not in the same profession.
Hmm. No, no, it's I think as you mentioned, it's about understanding what our limitations are.
Hmm.
And while we can have a roadmap for where we want to be 5 years from now or a year from now, whatever you want to whatever that time period is you want to measure. But how often you're looking to check in against that? If you do it daily, it's way, way, way too much.
Hmm.
And you will eventually you'll micromanage yourself. And I believe the majority, overwhelming majority, if not everyone, could not stand for an extended period of time to be micromanaged. And if they're doing it themselves, there might it won't last very long, right? They may be in a situation where they have to deal with being micromanaged in their employment because they have a job, like we had talked about last week, versus a career.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing it to yourself, you'll stop doing it, and then you'll never make any goals. But on a weekly basis, I think is manageable, reasonable, probably a better one. And like I said, I'd like to be able to get it to where I can be doing these things on a monthly basis. But I'm not there yet. But I would like to be able to go, all right, in the month, I want to do 50 hours of reading, but then I also need to accomplish blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the month, what did I get? But that may be, as you meant, too abstract. I don't know. But I know right now, a week is a pretty good sweet spot for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, like here's another example, kind of a counter example, but making the exact same point, right? Not an opposite point.
But I would never think about doing the opposite of what I think I should do, because I know that would be absolutely wrong, because whatever I do is the right thing.
Well said, my friend. Well said. I was curious what would happen, dude. Look, I never wore a tie in my life.
Chaos.
I never wore a tie in my life.
And you know what? I think you may be the reason why the world is what it is. You literally, put a chasm into the world, and now all of a sudden, since you started wearing a tie, COVID happened. People entered the Capitol, all because you wore a tie.
How dare you? How dare you, man? And now I love it.
You put chaos into the world. You unleashed the dragon, and
I extracted too much order, and chaos naturally filled that space, right? Because something has to.
Yeah.
Here's a perfect example why a week works for me. A counter example, but same point. I forgot to give one class a quiz today. I had it in my notes to do. I got into a topic and got excited, and we were having this great dialogue. And before I knew it, the class was over, and I'm like, shit. You guys are supposed to take a quiz. We'll do that on Friday. Perfect, man. So in a week, I also find, tell me if you do too, a week is good for me because it gives me a good constraint to operate within, and I'll get those things done. But it also gives me enough flexibility to be human and make mistakes, and I can recover from within that time frame.
Well, absolutely. Right now, so what let's say the risk in that particular mindset, right, is what if your class was on Friday and that was when you were originally going to give the quiz, then you're done. Right. So, so what do you do to counteract it? So for me, I tend to kind of like, maybe you were doing this consciously or maybe not at all, but I tend to front load my week with things. Mm-hmm. And then because within that framework of my week, I still need to be able to be flexible to when new things come in, because I'm going to be presented with new data, a new problem, something new on a day-to-day basis. Because every day is different. Mm-hmm. It's I'm not in accounting, so it's not the same thing every day. So as something new comes into the environment, I then can reprioritize very quickly and go, you know what, this can wait till Friday. Now, again, the risk is Friday could happen, and then that still may not get done. But that's also going to be the only reason it's not going to get done is because it was such a low priority that it was okay if it didn't. Right. Because that means if it didn't get done, a new priority came in on Friday that was higher than the one I pushed to Friday, and that just means, hey, I'll throw that into the task list, so to speak, for what happens next week. But I think that's the danger, right? I don't know from a quiz perspective, as to whether or not moving it from a Wednesday to a Friday could really hurt you. Like, what happens even if you get to Friday if you had to give it on Monday? I mean, probably
no. And it's happened, but you are right though, by design, because this is kind of the point I was driving at, is I tend to plan as if the worst case scenario will happen, right? So like, I know how I think, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get into this interesting conversation, and I'm going to forget, even though it's right in front of me. I won't look. at what I'm supposed to look at, right? And so I tend to front load the week with things that have to be created or process oriented, things like that. So that if something comes up that trumps it, I can flex it on to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then the absolute worst case scenario is it doesn't happen because something else comes up and dude, it's a quiz. These are 10-point quizzes, man. Like, dude, at that point, I may just give everybody the 10 points and just move forward if the cost of pushing it to Monday is too high.
Yeah. All right. So check this out, because I just thought of this right now as we were talking about all this. We're just going to say that Saturday and Sunday is kind of used for personal reflection of whatever we want to do, and that the work week in this is Monday through Friday.
Sure.
Okay. What day is your busiest? What day is your slowest?
Oh, that's a great question, man. Monday tends to be the busiest. And there's a reason why for me that's true. That's easily explained. And most people will understand why once I explain it. Probably my chillest day is Thursday.
All right, so check this out, because I was just thinking about this, because this is how I kind of structure my week. Mondays and Fridays are my slowest days, with Friday being even more slow than Monday. Wednesday is my busiest by design, because I'm ramping up and then ramping down. And I came to this, as we were talking, I'm like, I wonder what's this. And I just thought, I maybe subconsciously did that because it's about momentum and then unwinding from it. Because, and it's almost like a bell curve. Now, Mondays are a little bit big because I'm getting that work week going, blah, 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 blah. But Fridays, I tend to not schedule any reoccurring meetings. It's the things that I want to explore in my profession day. And so I tend to keep that very light so I can use that day for my professional growth. And so I control Friday for the most part 100%. Monday, not as much, but I want to start Monday. I want to get some momentum built up. Tuesday, I got a little bit more. Wednesday, I hit that peak. I'm down on Thursday, and then Friday, it's kind of getting into that professional growth. But I didn't, I kind of thought, I knew I was kind of doing that, but I only really realized that as we were just talking right now in terms of productivity.
Yeah, see, and I think this is probably one of those areas where it's largely driven just by the sheer difference in our professions. My Mondays are usually the most chaotic, simply because the students were goofing off all weekend.
Yeah.
Which, fair play, right? And then they realize something's due and they all want to talk on Monday.
Yeah. So it didn't used to always be like this. I happened to because of my, I believe my boss, and I don't say that in a negative way. I mean, I really, really enjoy working with him, and he never makes me feel like that he's a boss, so to speak. But he also believes that, Monday shouldn't be really a day of meetings. You need an opportunity to kind of collect data. So Tuesdays when we tend to have staff meetings, but at every other place I've ever been, Monday is like meeting hell. And that, you don't even have an opportunity to breathe and even to collect. So for all those companies that have all their meetings, so to speak, on Monday, you're really forcing your management team to work Sunday. That's really what they're doing, because that's the only way you can get up to speed to be prepared for whatever's going to happen on Monday, because stuff's going to happen over the weekend, of some type, especially, well, actually everywhere. I mean, something's going to happen over the weekend. So I think my boss realizes that, because he was, prior to becoming CEO, he was a chief operating officer. So he was probably used to that, I know I need all these things happening on Monday. And so then Tuesday is a decent meeting day for me, but Wednesdays is really my meeting hell day. I do a lot of meetings on Wednesdays. Most of that is by choice. Yeah. Most of it's by choice. That's because those are meetings that I put on the books. There's 2 meetings on Wednesdays that I didn't. They're, roughly good meetings anyway. I mean, for the whole organization. So I'm not really, I'm not complaining. But I put the other part on there. I do a lot of my reoccurring meetings are on Wednesdays.
Yeah, see, and for me, the Monday routine it's not necessarily meetings per se. It's just more. This is the difference in our professions. My profession, I spend a lot of time by myself, so it's non-interactive, right? Which is good for my profession for me. And so like Thursdays, I get an enormous amount of research done because it just tends to be chill, right? Because other people are following more of the curve you're talking about.
Yeah.
Whereas Mondays are a high interaction day because people need direction, they need interaction, they need questions answered, which I'm happy to do. I actually enjoy it. I just know ahead of time that it's going to be that way. So I don't have this illusion that Monday I'm going to sit down and read 10 papers and do a literature review because it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen.
Well, your Thursday is very similar to my Friday, right? Because you happen to have classes on Friday. So your Thursday is your professional development day that you're doing to do whatever you want, your research, stuff like that, which is my Friday, right? It just, and it's is like, because, for those out there that don't know, I mean, people tend to either, for the most part, teach class Tuesday, Thursday, or it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I mean, it's, sometimes you might be, if you're truly a lecturing professor, you might be teaching all day, all week, but that means you're not doing any research because you've got two classes, so to speak, or multiple, but classes tend to be in Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Right. And so my heavier teaching loads are on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like on Thursday, I have one class and it starts at 7:50. So, I'm pretty much, once I eat lunch at 11:30.
Which is why we're always having to cut the shows short.
That's a spring cycle, man. Fall's different, but I'm fine with it, But this is another reason why a long time ago I decided if I really want quiet, productive time before anything else ever has a chance to infiltrate that, that's why I get up early.
Well, there is a you hit on a great point. Maybe you meant to or not, who knows? People, when you take a look at a lot of very successful people, and success, define it however you want, right? But those successful people get up early. Why? Because they have uninterrupted time to think and get things done. And that could even be they do their workouts first thing in the morning. Because if they put it off till later, you don't know what's going to happen today. You remove your ability to be flexible throughout the day. So your things that you need to be regimented, schedule it early before most people wake up. And I used to, I wasn't really joking. I used to say I get more accomplished before 9 a.m. than what most people will do all day long. And the reason I would say this, and I do believe it, is because most people, when they wake up in the morning, they go take their shower, they get in their car, they go an hour drive to work, they get to work at 9 a.m. They walk in the door at 9 a.m. Then they go get they turn on their computer, or so to speak, go get their coffee. They forgot to lock their computer. Someone probably sent some crazy email on their behalf, but they, because this is what I think most people tend to do. But they get their coffee. They're, shooting some BS at the proverbial water cooler to, hey, how was your weekend? Blah, blah, blah. They get back to the desk like around 9:45. And dude, I've already been working for 3 hours.
Right.
I mean, I've already been being productive for 3 hours in some capacity because I have done some reading, meditative thought, I've, research, some workout, whatever it might be. And I'm already ready to go. Coffee was made and brewing at like 6:30, right? It's, I'm on my second cup at 9 a.m.
Oh, easily, dude. Easily. Yeah. And so I kind of express it this way. Now, I'm one of those fortunate people that doesn't require 8-9 hours of sleep. And in fact, to me, it's counterproductive.
How much sleep do you think you need?
For me, my sweet spot is 6.5, 7. That's my sweet spot. Much less than that, and it's negative, and more than that's negative.
How much are you monitoring your REM and deep sleep?
My gear does. I don't really watch it.
Yeah, so I have. So this is what I've noticed for me. I have to have, in order to feel rested, a combination of about 3.5 hours of REM and deep sleep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The total sleep doesn't seem to affect me as much
Right.
as long as I have that 3.5 hours of that combination.
Yeah.
And I've been monitoring because the Aura Ring monitors how often I move. It monitors my resting heart rate. It's monitoring my breaths per minute. It's monitoring everything. And what I've noticed, and for some people, they may need 8 hours to get that 3.5.
Right.
But I mean, I'm looking at my sleep cycles and I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And so, what am I doing in order to do that? So I can feel refreshed and recuperate.
Yeah, see, and that's really when you break down the science of it, the difference. Those of us that don't require huge amounts of time to sleep actually have more restorative sleep in that shorter block of time. So it's roughly equal. It's actually better, right? Because it's uninterrupted. And I've always been that way. And I mean, dude, since I think I haven't used an alarm clock since I was in undergrad. I don't use an alarm of any kind whatsoever. I don't.
Well,
like
you don't need one now because you got the rooster.
Well, he's too far away, dude. You can't really hear him inside the house. When I go outside and run in the morning, I can hear him loud as day. but this is just the way I am, and so I learned how to capitalize on it. And so I explain it to people this way. I don't force myself. Like if I'm sick or I'm exhausted or I'm worn out, I'll sleep 8 hours. I've slept 9 hours. Not that long ago, but I don't actively manage it. I let my body do what it needs to do. I've just learned how to capitalize on it, and so I'm able to take the amount of time that other people have to sleep to feel good for whatever reason, right? I've basically turned making myself better into a part-time job. That's the amount of time I spend weekly just by sleeping a little less.
Well,
and so I'm not one of these people that force myself to get up at 4:30. I don't have any alarms set. Right? I mean, I don't need it.
The only time I set alarms are if I'm going to if I need to do something that would not be out of my routine, because I know I'm doing something tomorrow that's not in my routine.
Yeah.
Which tends to be because I've got an early flight I like to get. Like I prefer to be on the first flight out. If I'm going to be at an airport, I want to be on the first flight out.
Amen. Amen, dude.
And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, it's typically not fully loaded. Two, if there's a problem, I can get on the next flight.
That's right.
When you take a later flights, those tend to be the most full. And if it's too late, and you're waiting until the next day. So I want to be first flight out in the morning. That's what I want.
You got more options.
I like my flexibility.
That's right.
And because those haven't noticed the theme, flexibility is really what it comes down to. And as we're planning and as we're designing how we're going to lead ourselves and those that have entrusted us to lead them through, their careers, flexibility is key.
Yep. Well, with it, you retain all the power.
Yeah.
You don't have to depend on somebody else for it to give it back to you, right? Because you've even implicitly given it away. I'm not giving anybody power for free. Get out of here. Get out of here, dude.
Yeah, there's very, very few people, I would say, have a power. And for those, if we could use a different word, influence, and so how it's going to affect my mental and emotional state.
Yeah, right.
Right. And TK and I talked about this 2 Sundays ago with basically the habits of mentally strong people.
Right.
And this is why I will continue to say I honestly don't believe President Trump is all that mentally strong. If he was, he wouldn't need to reply to stupid stuff on Twitter. All right. As we talked about, you think Michael Jordan reads the Twitter comments?
No.
Dude, when you're the greatest basketball player to ever live, and some would even go so far to say, and arguably, the number one athlete of all time, right? There's and you can say that. I mean, look what he does in golf. Like, look what he does in everything. He played basketball. He did quite well in golf. He went and left basketball to go play baseball. I mean, hey, that's not easy. So, arguably, best athlete of all time. In my mind, without a doubt, the best basketball player ever. Like, sure. You just, you can't get over those things. And why? Well, if you didn't catch his documentary, and I don't remember what it was called. off the top of my head. It was fabulous. And what you saw, he was so mentally strong. You couldn't break this cat. You just weren't. He was going to break you.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely, man. And so what that manifests as is the ability to create these hierarchies of competence to operate in that then you can transpose into other disciplines. And that's what you see. And so you're singularly the best in one, which immediately puts you at the top of the hierarchy by definition, right? But because he had this framework within which he had flexibility to operate and retain power, he could translate that into other, let's say, similar enough disciplines that he could transcend that other hierarchy. And that's really what I strive for personally. It's just that flexibility. And, and that's what making sure that I retain the mental strength and power to create a part-time job of just improving myself by getting up early and not fucking off. Because I could get up and play World of Warcraft and my life wouldn't be worse. My life just wouldn't get better.
Well, I don't know that that's entirely true. And here's why. Because World of Warcraft is a little bit of a de-stressor for you. Like you do enjoy that time, maybe not necessarily right now because of how long you've been playing for 20 years, but there is an aspect of that's a little bit de-stressing, and that de-stressing does help you to be productive later.
The leisure time definitely does, but I'll tell you, I dig what you're saying, and I agree. Here's the difference over the last 2 years for me, is once I figured out how to optimally structure my week, I find that I don't need as much leisure time like that, because the time itself is leisurely or stress-free enough that I spend this is like the analogy or the connection to your sleep idea, right? About being in deep sleep. Is I spend almost all my time, unless I'm in class or I have some engagement that's happening that's ad hoc, it's almost all in flow state. And that's just so relaxing, man. It's like permanent meditation. And so I find I don't need that leisure time. In fact, trying to create that leisure time now is more disruptive than having it. It's really interesting, man. It's really interesting. That's one thing I have been tracking.
I haven't thought about it in that way, because, but I wonder if it's because some of right now, my leisure, something that I was training for is not really cost efficient, which was, doing IDPA, and International Defensive Pistol League, basically stuff, right? So training for 3-gun. When I was first doing this, 9mm ammo was quite cheap. Now it's not. Yeah. So I'm not really training as much. I mean, this is how insane it is. 9mm is the number one ammunition type in the world, and even more so in the United States. And it used to be something like relatively cheap ammo. Like if you were going to use this just going to the shooting range, it's like 22 cents a round, right? Mm-hmm. Not a big deal. Now it's like 90 cents.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say $1.
Okay. Yeah. I get 10mm ammo cheaper than I can get 9mm right now. Now, people may be out there going, why do you got a 10mm? Well, why not?
Bigger's better.
Well, because there's going to be, there's going to be people because everyone's always got an opinion on stuff, right? Because there's going to be people out there that go, you should just be shooting a 45. Why? By the 10mm out there, and it packs a little bit more power than that 45. And guess what? 10mm ammo for me is cheaper than the 45 ammo. Why? Right. Because right now that's what people want. So thankfully, I bought all my ammo in bulk before COVID, and I still got plenty. I just don't have plenty enough to where I'm going to go to the range.
Right. Well, and along these lines, quite honestly, the little bit of time last semester where we stopped this life in tech and we weren't doing Whiskey Wednesday, not having this outlet of dialogue was way more stressful than not playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I get that. As much as I enjoy playing games, and I still do on occasion, because and here's the occasion. If I'm going to do something that's going to be true leisure at this point, it takes longer than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, I can just throw on a game for 15 minutes and who cares where I'm at. I just wanted to kind of occupy some space because, all right, if I start to read, I really don't like reading in 15-minute increments because I don't feel that's productive. So, what am I going to do for 15 minutes that's going to be inconsequential for the rest of the day? I might play a game for 15 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like that's more of what I do at this point. Though I have, because I always got, I've got some podcast up or something, but here's something that I've been doing. Let me see what you think about this.
Yeah, sure. Hit me.
So I got this app. It's called Blinkist. Have you heard of this?
It sounds familiar.
What
is it?
So basically,
Blinkist.
what it does is, or maybe it's Blinkist. It's something like that. It's So what it does is it's got thousands of nonfiction books, and it basically gives you the cliff notes of the entire book, and they give you some analysis stuff like that. So what I've been doing with this is I listen to one or two of these a day, but what I do is that I determine based on how I reacted to the Blinkist is whether or not I go and get the full book.
Okay.
So I'm getting kind of like in my mind the trailers for a movie, and if I like the trailer, I might go see the movie.
Right.
Well, in this case, I'm kind of treating Blinkist like that, to where I can go through, because I'm still going to get benefit of that book, even if I chose not to go fully read it. I may not get the full benefit, but I got something out of it. But it was, because I go like 22 to 40 minutes for depending on the size of the book. But if I like the book, or if I like what they said, then I'm going and buying the book, and I've got it, as an ebook. Typically, while I like my hard copy books, I find that the hard copy books are enjoyable to kind of read that process. But if I'm looking to do research, I want the electronic book so I can go back. Oh, where did I remember something? I can search for that word or keyword, boom, get in the book, and I can get my direct quotes and then properly summarize. But so I started using Blinkist quite a bit to give me the summary, the cliff notes, so to speak. And if I liked it, if it was something that sparked my interest, I went and I'll go and do the full book.
Oh, that's neat to know. No, I just looked it up. It is Blinkist. Yeah.
Oh, Blinkist. Okay.
I must have heard about it at some point. I've never used it, but now I'm interested. I'm going to check it out, man. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's got a lot of books on there, and so like right now, I'm basically just there. In the beginning, I was purposely searching for certain books, or certain topics.
Yeah.
Now they get, hey, here's your daily Blinkist. So I'm like, all right, I'll just listen to what I have to say, and if it sucks, well,
right. What, you're out a couple minutes, right?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't cost me anything. It cost me whatever the subscription is for the year. Like, so it didn't cost me any additional money. I didn't get as much time, but all right, if it was that bad, which to be honest, I haven't had anything that was that bad.
Right.
There's been certain things I'm kind of like, I'm not really that interested in that topic. So, all right, I got the basis. I learned something, but not a topic for me.
Oh, that's a win.
And I think that's a big part. That the lesson to that there, boys and girls, is it's equally, or if not more important, to know what you don't like than what it is just what you do like.
Yeah, right. Because then not to spend time on that anymore, or at least not for quite some time until some of their variable changes, which happens. Yeah. Right. My tastes change over long periods of time, but yeah, that's kind of how I do it. And so, for myself, I feel like I'm very task oriented or task leadership styled, But for other people, I don't enjoy that. I enjoy being more of an emotionally driven leader.
Well, you've always been a very high emo kind of person. So,
Hey man, what are you gonna do? I used to. Did I ever tell you this, man? In undergrad, I used to paint my toenails black, so when I took a shower, it looked like I was dead.
no, you haven't told me that one. I mean,
I haven't told a lot of people that, but now I have.
it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I should largely say that there's not the only surprise I could say it's ever happened was our very first time meeting in person.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That would have been
yeah.
it, right? Outside of that, I can't say that there's anything that you could say or do that I could say, oh, that was kind of shocking. No. So for those that don't know, the Ninja and I, when we were doing our doctorate program, it's largely done in an executive like style where you meet weekly online for classes. So it's not asynchronous. It is you're meeting on this date, we're taking class, and that's that. And the teacher typically would video broadcast, and the students not necessarily. Some did, some didn't. But so the Ninja and I, while we talked quite a bit, we had never actually met in person.
Nope.
So when I finally we met face to face, it was not anything that I had expected. Because here's someone that's he's an English lit undergrad major. He's been working in this, and this. And he comes and he's got the the tattoos up to the neck. You didn't have a sleeve yet at that point, I don't believe.
It wasn't finished.
It may have only been half at that point, but it wasn't, because you didn't get the tiger portion until almost where you came to Maryland, if I remember correctly.
Oh no, man, no! I'd come to Maryland and left. I mean, I was teaching at Cal Poly when I got the tiger and everything filled in completely.
Oh, okay. So you'd already got. All right, got it. All right. So I was like, all right, because I knew I knew it was sometime after we. But yeah, so I was like, I'm like, not what I was expecting. Tommy was kind of what I was expecting.
Yeah.
He did. I wasn't surprised.
I think it always set people off a little bit because I was the only person from California. Everybody else pretty much was from DC Metro or close enough that it might as well be, right? I'm being nice to our friend from West Virginia.
Yeah.
Hey man, every time I drive through on my way to Ohio, I think about it, but I haven't talked to him in a long time. And so people knew I was from California because of the time difference. And I think people assumed that I grew up there, which I didn't. And so they made assumptions about primarily my physical appearance, which isn't true. I never had dreadlocks and I don't have blonde hair.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that. I just was not expecting, what I wind up seeing. Like I was not, I didn't have any expectations of, and to be honest, I don't even know if I, at that time, even knew you were from California or that you were living in California. Like, I don't know if I ever made that connection.
Right.
But I just wasn't expecting someone with, because in some ways I was kind of going, well, this person's in cybersecurity. Oh, he was an English lit undergrad. Probably.
You're expecting something a bit more conservative.
Yeah, which was fine.
And I just tend to be a little more punk rock. And that's just a fair way to describe it as I see it.
Yeah. But I mean, I kind of go, well, if I had gone back to a particular point in time where I had a crazy goatee, I was wearing earrings, people probably would say the same thing about me. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. It became more that it was, as I progressed, as to how I evolved and everything that I had done.
Yeah.
Evolution. So are you growing the full beard back?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny you talk about Maryland. I was doing something, man, and Baby Pittman and I were looking at photos, and I happened to find the directory. I found your dissertation defense, which I still have to package those photos up and email them to you, but I set them aside so I remember where they were at. And I found like all the photos from when that beard started getting really long. And I've grown long beards, but not that long. And she's like, "Oh, you should do that again." I'm like, "I think you're right, dude, because I'm kind of tired of shaving. It's cold out."
You should just do like the ZZ Top, just do the goatee all the way down, right? That way you're just shaving here.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. I mean, you've been around me a long time. It comes and goes, and I don't really think twice about it. If I get tired of shaving, I just stop shaving. When I get tired of having a beard, I'll get tired of having a beard.
Yeah, I feel like at a certain point I'll get tired of the Doc Holiday, but for now I'm not. I'm still digging it. You know, who knows what I'll do next? Maybe I'll grow this thing and that instead just keep on going down and be like true Fu Manchu. I don't know.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Who knows? It would be it was the Kill Bill. Bill's teacher was like that.
Oh yeah. That was Gordon Liu that did that, right?
Yeah, it was Gordon Liu was the
But I don't remember the character's
I don't remember the character. Yeah, I don't remember the character.
I don't either. Yeah, I didn't actually enjoy Kill Bills. There were certain scenes in it that I liked, but overall, I didn't like the movies. Not nearly as much as anything else in the Tarantino universe.
Yeah, it was okay. It was just okay. I can't say. Okay, so if I happen to be flipping through stuff because, all right, I just feel like watching something, there are certain movies where I'm like, oh, that's on, I got to watch it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
To me, it's like, all right, yep, I'll watch stuff on Star Wars. If Lord of the Rings were to pop up, I'll probably do that. Princess Bride, any of the Godfathers for the most part. Rocky 1, I would do. There's things like Scarface. That those things come on. All right, yeah, I'm gonna stop and watch it. Kill Bill's not in that category.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever rewatched it, to be honest with you. Whereas, like, there's times where I got to grade papers, right? And I just want something on for noise because I don't want music for some reason. Dude, I'll pop Inglourious Bastards on, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, something like that. I like those. They're comfortable. They're good. They hold up. Kill Bill just didn't hit the spot for me. I don't think they're bad. I just don't like them as much as the other.
Well, stuff. I think they could have been done. I think they could have been done better. That's really. I feel like it's like it had the potential to be good, and they, he screwed it up. Like, I don't know. Maybe he didn't take enough mushrooms that during the filming. I have no idea, but
maybe Uma Thurman didn't show him her feet. I don't know, dude.
I'm not judging.
Hey, man, I'm not either. I'm just making a joke.
I just go, because I kind of like the aspect of like, oh, this is a Hanzori sword or Hanzo sword or whatever it was.
Hanzo,
yeah. I'm like, oh, this okay. There's some. All right, this is I'm getting into that samurai aspect that I enjoy. But then I'm kind of like, well, wait a minute. Like literally, she's in a coma, still has the baby. All this, I'm like, all right, no, this is a little bit too far off for me.
Yeah, I don't know. Just, hey, man, different strokes for different folks, dude. I support choice and flexibility at all times for everybody, equally, in fact.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Thanks for stopping by again.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it. Anything good going on the rest of the week? Other than a quiz Friday.
We'll see, man. It's going to be an interesting weekend. We got some scholarship interviews on Saturday. I always like talking to new people in that kind of context. And then I signed up to do these, they call them innovation summits, where you go in and kind of teach like a fake class. So they're like little one-off presentations. So, I just talk about things that I've always wanted to talk about that don't fit into a class. And so I'm doing that on Sunday, Valentine's Day.
So going to be a bloody Valentine's for you, or?
I mean, for somebody else, it might be. When I get all ramped up talking about something that I find interesting, I'll get on fire. Yeah, I'm going to stop and maybe get some wings, something nice and fun to eat on the way home, and the three of us will sit down and watch some stupid. At least now, Baby Pittman's in the iCarly, dude. That's way less insufferable than some of that Disney crap. Oh my god.
Yeah. So, if you haven't yet, I will tell you that at least they are really good.
Yeah. Well, I
Spaghetti.
remember when.
Spaghetti tacos.
Yeah.
They are.
Well, because
good.
I remember when Ben watched it, man, it wasn't bad. Here's the thing. I'll end with this, right? The thing that drives me crazy about some of the kid-oriented shows is they're so overacted. And I understand why they're doing it, but man, I can't. It's not for me. I can't take it. It's the same reason why I don't like musicals. It's not because the music sucks. It's because they're just so overacted. I can't take it.
Wait, so you didn't like The Greatest Showman?
No.
Actually, I like that. That's probably one of the few ones that I did like. I actually thought it was a good story in there about P.T. Barnum. So
yeah, I agree, but just you know what I mean. It's one of the reasons why, like, I really like theater. I like plays, but I'm very selective on what I go watch because I can't take the amateur overacting, man. I can't take it. It's too much.
how dare you talk that way about Hugh Jackman?
Fucking amateur.
That's the Wolverine, dude. What is wrong with you?
Last time I checked in Punisher War Journal 6 and 7, he got his ass kicked.
Yeah, he's still alive. You can't kill the guy. You know.
Oh man,
that is one of so someone to put like, okay, you know, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever characters, like which one would you be? And it was really tough because, you know, Wolverine was in the discussion, but so was Darth Vader. And I'm like, not Darth Vader.
Yeah, right. By the way, I will finish with this because I'll maintain a legacy. I did present to a group of students a couple weeks ago this idea of if you could be a superhero or have a superpower, what would you pick? And then I told them that story, and like everybody's scratching their head, like, what in the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, that's a real story, dude. And so, just so you know, if anybody was thinking anything like that, don't open your mouth. Just keep it to yourself.
Well, as a matter of fact, actually, no, I wouldn't even go that far. I want to know who it is because 100% guaranteed, I don't hire this person.
Yeah.
All right. So for those that don't know, all right,
it's classic.
I asked, you know, so I had a bunch of interns at this one company called Fixmo, and I'm huge on interns. I think they're great. It's a lot of work, but it's very, very, very rewarding. You know, you get to be a mentor to someone to help them getting into a field they want to. So I had them all going to Toronto. They were all from Maryland, and we're stuck. So I was like, hey, guess what? If you're going to be in this kind of field, you're very likely to get stuck in a lot of airports. So now we're all at dinner. And so I asked the question, all right, if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Great question.
And you know, it could go anywhere. And there were some ones that were, you know, that were all right. Pretty good. Like, hey, I want to be invisible. But, yeah. I'm like, hey, right now, I wish I could fly because then I wouldn't be stuck in Toronto, right?
Yeah,
opportunistic.
Give
right?
you the next answer.
Yeah. So the last one, my superpower would be to never have to go to the bathroom ever again. I was like, what? Not joking. I'm like, all right. They're like, think about it. All the time you would get back. You'd have all this energy. No, dude, you don't get to read into it. Like, if you don't have to ever go to the bathroom, like, you're just not ever going to the bathroom.
Right.
Like, you don't get super speed. You don't get to do any of these other things. Like, it's just, he's like, yeah, I get back time. Dude, how about you choose time travel?
That's right. Exactly. And you know, that's exactly what somebody said when I was telling them this story, right? That's exactly what they said. They're like, why wouldn't you just like manipulate time? Like Dr. Manhattan. Yeah. Like, yes, that's the obvious answer. I don't know what this dude was thinking, but
well, needless to say, that's one of the few interns that I've ever had that I didn't hire or help get hired anywhere. Yeah. There were other reasons, but that was definitely an indicator of not having a lot of cognizant ability to really have an imagination, right? Imagination is important in life.
Yeah, man. It's like Dude, I'll never forget that. That's classic.
I neither will I, and I tell that story quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people are. I have never had anyone go, well, that seems perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, me either. For the record, man. You know, anecdotal sample, sure, right? I've never had somebody be like, dude, that's a great idea. Everybody just kind of scratches their head and kind of says, what the fuck, dude?
Now, mind you, I may have only told that story. This may have been the 12th time I've ever told that story, right? 12th time. And right now, so you already heard it, and the amount of people out there, they can't really comment. But prior to this time, it's at least always been in groups of like, 4 or 5.
Right, right.
So, 44 to 55 people roughly, and
We're
I
probably
go,
up to, all told a couple hundred people.
and I go, I've never had one person go, that makes a lot of sense. No, like literally, there's so many things that could be done. I mean, even if you said you were going to have like super speed, like Superman, he was able to go so fast to turn back time in one of the Superman movies, right? So
Yeah, right, right. Or the Flash. Look what that show turned into.
yeah. I mean, anything. I can't think of anything worse than that. But all right, so there was this one other intern that I had when I put this forth to them. This one was pretty devilish. His superpower was that he wished he knew what your worst nightmare was so they could always bring it to reality.
Yeah, okay. Dude, I get it. You're a creepy fuck. I don't know that I want you in the same hotel room with me. But right. I get it.
But I'm like,
sure.
That's the darkest one I've ever had someone tell me. But that was pretty good. Like,
sure.
Someone's scared of spiders. Guess what you're going to get to see all the time? Spiders, right? Whatever your phobia is. I'm like, hey,
yeah,
pretty creepy. Don't want. I don't even want to not just be in the same hotel. I don't even want to be in the same hotel.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I was being generous. Just because I don't want to pay a different rate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I wouldn't be paying the different rate. They'd be paying the different rate. I mean, I might be because I'm probably not staying at the same class of hotel that they are anyway. All right, my friend.
All right, pal.
Cheers to everyone. Thank you all for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe. I've got topics. Go ahead and, send them over. Have a great week. May peace be with you.
Blessed be. See you soon.
Take care.
Later.